Hello, this is Sam Calagione. Welcome to the Better Beer Authority.
Better Beer Authority, Better Beer.
Hi, this is your Better Beer Authority. I'm James Knott. We are at the Dogfish Head Brewery in Milton, Delaware. I'm with Sam Calagione, the president and founder of Dogfish Head, and he's here to let us know a little bit more about the brewery. Sam, are you an evangelist?
Not with any official religious affiliations. I'm certainly an evangelist for craft beer, probably as much as I am an evangelist for Dogfish Head. I love just seeing our whole movement grow, and we're very proud of Dogfish Head's little niche within the greater craft brewing movement.
Okay, and you're the 19th largest brewery, 11th largest craft brewery. Does the size of the brewery matter?
No, I mean, I didn't even know those numbers, so that probably tells you that no, not really. I did know we probably are the biggest craft brewery in the Mid-Atlantic, so that was a statistic someone told me recently. But you got to remember 17 years ago, we were the smallest brewery in the country, and our mission then of off-centered ales for off-centered people meant, right out of the gates we were brewing with very exotic ingredients. And now today we put out about 8,000 cases of beer from the production brewery every day. And that's awesome that we're of that scale, and so many great people here have helped get us to that scale. Like on my own, I would still be probably brewing on the 5-barrel brewery in the pub. So I'm really thankful for all the talented people that have come on this journey with us. But more than the growth, I'm proud of the recipes we do now. 8,000 cases a day are at least as adventurous as those when we were the smallest brewery in the country. So,
I mean, can Dogfish Head get too big? I mean, is there a point where you say, hey, like Russian River,
they're way too big.
They decided
that's ridiculous. What Vinny and Natalie doing, that's just.
But they decided to stop growing, for the time being. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you see a point where Dogfish Head would just say, hey, this is the size that we are, and that's where we're going to stay?
No, we almost feel like we have our biggest responsibilities to our coworkers to at least grow, by cost of living adjustment every year, so that we can pay everybody a little bit more who've chosen to come on this journey with us. Between that and a bigger number of growth, it's more up to the consumer to decide, I think, and up to our kind of debt and financial structure, meaning our industry, unlike software, is very bricks and mortar intensive, and to grow 25%, you need 25% more tanks, brewhouse capacity, mm-hmm. bottling, all that stuff.
A lot more loans.
A lot more loans, and Dogfish has chosen a path where we don't want to take in venture capitalist money. We don't want to sell out to a big brewery. We don't want to go public, so that we can still make stupid choices like building a $140,000 wooden tank. If we were a public company, we probably wouldn't be allowed to make that choice. So we want to stay family-owned and private, which is actually the main driver of throttling our growth. We're lucky to be growing 20%. We know demands beyond that. But again, what I love about this industry is there's as many different models for success as there are beer recipes. Mm-hmm. So I love seeing, a Natalie and a Vinny saying, you know what, we're going to do this. Or my buddy Patrick at the brewery saying, we're going to pull back some of these volume beers and focus on sours or wood-aged beers. And then you've got other breweries making the choices to go with, a venture capitalist group like Magic Hat and Pyramid, and that's their own path that they're on. So that's, people are on all these different paths, and that's what's cool about our industry, all the diversity.
Okay. You had the show Brewmasters. Did that cause the influence of Dogfish Head to be greater in proportion to the size of Dogfish Head? I mean, could you feel from the time the show started airing, was there a difference in the air at Dogfish Head?
We've been lucky that our trajectory was such that demand was ahead of supply for a few years before the show came out. We're really proud of the show and think it reflected really well on not just Dogfish, but the excitement and the fun and the passion and the technical prowess in the craft brewing industry. So we're glad we had that experience. Yes, I think you saw it became more blatant when we run out in markets than before. We'd always run out in markets, but the people would just buy another awesome craft beer instead of going up to the guy and complaining at the retail store saying, I need Dogfish, where is it, where can I go, leaving the store to find it.
Yeah.
So we felt that a little bit.
How did you deal with fame?
I'm the least cool person in my house. My daughter Greer just did a school study on someone interesting in your family. Everybody made the collage, including our pug Kiki, except me. So my family keeps me really grounded, and I know that if I'm doing something like this, or I'm at the GABF and people want to give me a high five or a handshake, they're really saying we love the work that Dogfish Head does, and maybe to some extent I kind of personify what Dogfish Head does to a lot of people outside. But I know when I'm giving that high five, I'm doing it on behalf of 140 people here. So again, I don't take that for granted. We all did this together, and so I'm thankful for that.
I mean, day to day, you can't be doing a ton of brewing. I mean, do you still feel like a brewer?
I try to, those are still my favorite days of work, and doing the test batch, actually I think I did the first two with down the pub with another brewer of Tweesnail, or first batch of Noble Rot recently, or Positive Contact. That's still kind of my, what I can bring the most to this company. Like, everybody at their jobs here is better at what they do than I could be. What I'm still good at is thinking about what we're going to do next. And usually a beer will go from me writing a 2-paragraph, just like brain dump on I'm thinking about these ingredients, this kind of yeast, these grains, da-da-da-da-da, to one brewer at the pub and to Tim, our brewmaster. And from that, we form the 5-barrel recipe. I go down for the first batch at the pub. Then you'll see when you guys are there tonight that there'll be at least 2 or 3 beers on tap that aren't available in distribution. Mm-hmm. And that's our focus group. That's how we say if people pay, because I talk to the guys at Purdue Chicken down the road from here, and they're like, wow, you mean you don't have focus groups? We pay people to come in and try our different products. And I'm like, no, and we let people, we're excited that people come to our bar and willing to pay. And if they're willing to pay $5 or $6 for a beer, they'll tell you if it fucking sucks,
Yeah.
Whereas Purdue has a focus group that the guys making $20 an hour to sit there and talk about their chicken.
Yeah.
They
love
know.
free chicken.
Yeah, I love your chicken. So that was neat talking to those guys, and I learned a lot from those guys. So what I'm getting at is I love my role of thinking about what we're going to do next, doing the test batch. Then I bring a few batches or a few kegs of that test batch to GABF or Extreme Beer Fest or an event, and then I'm more shifted into selling and marketing that beer, and then I work on the packaging and the release. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I contribute to this company. I can't brew on that 100-barrel brew house. I don't know how.
Well, you started on the really small Sabco
I can still
system.
brew on that.
And so, I mean, that is as small as you can get.
We were Nano before Nano was cool.
I mean, did you ever have a point where you felt like you might fail? I mean, or were you just like too gung-ho and too naive to see it?
No, we opened in '95, and that moment that you talk of where we felt like we might fail was probably a 49-month moment, from like 97 through 2000-ish. We didn't make any money at our production brewery, so we had to take all the profits from our restaurant pub and pay bank loans for the production brewery just to not go bankrupt. Mm-hmm. So that was a very real part of our history, knowing that we might not make it. But in that era, beers like Immortale at $12, $13 a 6-pack back then, Midas Touch in 99, 2000, we also didn't say, these beers people are not buying them, let's neuter the taste profile of them, or let's discount them because we need to grow. So we stuck to our guns, kept making really flavorful beers with really unique ingredients, particularly for that era. And eventually we were fortunate enough to get enough momentum and grassroots interest and media coverage to change our trajectory and get things positive.
Yeah. Now, Greg Cook from Stone seems like he's like on a personal war against the big guys. I mean, do you see it as a war, or that like they're evil, or how do you take it personally, like this battle for shelf space?
I'll say that all beer is good, and I'll say I don't like seeing beer overall as a category losing market share to wine and spirits, which it is. Most of that barrelage that's shrinking is coming out of the big brewing conglomerates, and the craft beers are what's growing. I will say my number one affinity is for craft beer. And if you look at the challenges that have been sort of foisted up by the media about what's going to happen in our industry, or people referencing the late 90s shakeout. Is it inevitable that we're going to see another era of shakeout? Or you hear brand proliferation, there's too many styles, there's not enough retail shelf to support it. I think we have more risk as an industry and as a community of beer enthusiast drinkers from the sort of quasi-craft beers that come from the big breweries dominating than we do from the nano small startup movement that's really thriving right now. Supposedly there's 700 breweries in the planning phase in America, the largest number in the history of post-prohibition history of our industry. And I think that's awesome. I love seeing these little breweries get into business. Are they all going to make it? Probably not, but I hope they all do. If they all make great beer and it's well-differentiated beer and it's their own, then I think they should all make it, and I think there's room for it, because you look at all these regional breweries, from Stone to Dogfish to Lagunitas to you name it, the regional guys, almost all of us are strapped for capacity. That means demand's in front of supply for the whole industry. Mm-hmm. Let's see that some of that capacity that we can't keep up with as regional breweries go to these nanos. Frankly, I get very concerned when you see a Shock Top or a Blue Moon growing, because they don't have the same challenges as independent, family-owned craft breweries. They don't have the same access to market challenges, the same access to ingredient challenges. So when they go into a retailer and charge $30 less for a keg, but tell the retailer, hey, you can charge the same per pint on this as you can for a Dogfish or Lagunitas or whatever, that's not a karmic playing field. So I want to see the large breweries not lose market share, but I want to see the small breweries own what defines a craft brewery.
Okay. There was a recent sort of, dust up on beeradvocate.com where someone posted a thing that said, who do you think the most overrated brewery is? And they said Dogfish Head as an example. And you chimed in. I mean, it was a pretty well thought out post that you did, but it seemed like you took it a little personally. But are the people on that forum, are they beating the fun out of beer? I think of beer as a fun drink.
Yeah.
Is there a point where you're just taking it too freaking seriously?
Well, I think so. And I mean, I do think of, on behalf of all people I work with, all these as our children and these different beers, and it's hard to hear your children getting beat up. And I felt it when I saw the names of the brewery and Sam Adams and Stone and Rogue and the other ones that were on that
Jim Cook
list.
even blogged about it.
Yeah. And I know how much passion these guys bring to what they do. And what's ironic is there's this perception issue that's, as you grow, you become less cool and less relevant.
Yeah, it was like they feel like you're a sellout.
Right.
Even though the recipes for, say, Midas Touch hasn't changed.
Right. And even though we have 1/15 of 1% market share. And, it's interesting. And 90% of the beer advocate community is awesome and is doing God's work to put small breweries like Dogfish, and particularly smaller now, onto the national radar of good beer, or international radar. But there is that, minority component of eating their young, and yet they weren't really even parents when the craft brewing movement started. So it's interesting for me to say, I love seeing, the explosion of wood-aged beers or dark, black IPAs or whatever. But frankly, you look at sometimes when these people joined that community and you see the start date of when they were on it, and they say, beers they say negative things about our beer, and it's wait a second, Indian Brown Ale was an opaque, super hoppy, proto-black IPA in '96. Immort Ale we've been doing since '95. We did our first American Wild Ale, Festina Lente, 8 or 9 years ago. I feel like maybe these folks don't have the context to see the contributions our brewery made before they got into our community, probably before they were 21. Yeah. So I don't hold that against them. I try to say, hey, I want to help make sure everyone's informed on what our real path in this industry was.
You make a big push to promote the quality of the ingredients that you use and kind of the cost of the ingredients used to kind of justify the higher price. But when are you ever worried that you could be turning Joe Sixpack into a snob?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think so. If you look around this room, a beer like To Hank It, where we went to Egypt, we hunted and gathered from the night air the yeast.
Commodity beer.
Yeah, and then we had to isolate we isolated all these organisms. We chose the best one. We did all these tests. Then we had to import Dom fruit to America, which has never been imported before. It got held up in custom, cost us tens of thousands of dollars to get through. Then we brew this beer with it, with all this bread made at a local bakery as an ingredient. And then we charge 12 or 14 bucks a 750 ml bottle for it. Or a case of Noble Rot that just came out. $62,000 of grape must being shipped coast to coast to coordinate at a certain temperature so the yeast wouldn't take back off in transit. And that's a $13 bottle of 9 ABV beer. We feel what we're offering is still an incredibly approachable value, luxury value product compared to the wine.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like there's a problem when you have a $13 bottle of beer?
Yeah.
I mean, there comes with it pretty high expectations. Like, is it hard, like, to send a 13 bottle out and feel like that person it's definitely going to live up to expectations for that person?
Thankfully, we're not the way we were 10 years ago, winging that decision. So we have a line item in our budget every year called damaged and dated goods, and it's a six-figure line item, $200,000-$300,000. Mm-hmm. And our QC, sensory, and micro has the ability to bubble up anything they see. And if something's not perfect, we dump it. We've dumped, over $100,000 of beer in the last 6 months, I'd say. So we know that even at $13, while that's affordable luxury for a 750 ml of botrytis infected, saison, then if that beer sucked, the person that spent 13 bucks wouldn't do it a second time. So our goal is to say, hey, when these things happen, destroy them, but the goal is to catch it before it gets into the packaging, so you at least save that part of the cost. But we dump beer every quarter.
When you first started, it was illegal to have a brew pub in Delaware. I mean, doesn't that, and you went and changed the laws, doesn't it take a lot of cojones?
Well, I didn't have an option. It was being afraid more than it was being brave. I was just like, oh my God, these people, my orthodontist, a guy who built stone walls for my dad, entrusted me with all, $110,000 was the initial investment from friends and family. And I'm like, I can't open unless I change the law. So I had to go up to Dover, and it probably never happened in Boston or, a big state with a huge capital. But you can just go to Dover and knock on doors and meet senators and say, hey, I got this situation. I got to do this now. And they were awesome. And since then, we've written, I think, 8 or 9 pieces of legislation in our 17-year history. And we just have a great relationship. Delaware is such a business-friendly state, and they're really proud of Dogfish being a native son of the state.
Okay, so from that point to where you're at now, how come you're just not? How come you're not sitting on the beach eating bonbons? I mean, you could.
Yeah, I'd go crazy. I love, again, what I love is thinking about what we're going to do next, and then I love watching all these people do what we're doing now. Mm-hmm. So I am as psyched coming into work every morning as I was in '95. And I'm just like driving home to see my family. I'm going into the chairmanship of the Brewers Association, and that will last for 2 years. It's a 2-year term, and I'm really excited in the same way that I talked about locally, this opportunity to give back to your community, nationally, the chance to give back to the craft brewing industry that welcomed Dogfish with warm, open arms is huge for me. So for the next 2 years, I'll be as committed to the BA's activities of promoting and protecting craft breweries as I will to growing Dogfish. But I do think after that 2-year term, I've been on the board of the Brewers Association for 9 years and on committees. I will probably unwind a little bit of that and be psyched to watch a bunch of younger brewers getting onto committees and going onto the board. And I'll really try to focus on family for the next 5 or 6 years before both of them are in college. So that's really
and then you can ignore them.
And then I plan to ignore them until hopefully one of them comes back and runs this company. That's my goal.
Nice. Hey, Sam.
Yeah.
Awesome.
This
I'm
was
so
fun.
glad we had a chance to
It's
talk.
like amplified self-help. I feel like I should pay you. Learned a lot about myself today.
Hey, next time we're in Delaware, we could sit down again.
That'd be fun. No, I enjoyed this. So enjoy the rest of your tour of the Delmarva breweries.
All right, well, we are off to go visit some other breweries, including 16 Mile, Evolution, and Dominion. Thanks to Sam Calagione and Dogfish Head for welcoming us with open arms. This has been a great experience. I'm James Knott, and this is your Better Beer Authority.
Better Beer Authority. Better Beer Authority.